Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
Do you want to hear a story? I'm not letting go.
Are you ready for this?
Follow your heart. I'm going in. This is Blockbuster Punch-Up.
Welcome to Blockbuster Punch-Up. This is episode 16. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and film enthusiast, Todd G. Levin.
I am enthused by film.
Todd, how much are you enthused by film?
This much, Jay.
Oh my god! Where'd you get that scale? What kind of liquid is in there?
I don't know. I found it outside your doorstep.
Oh god.
You
said you found that on the weather balloon?
On the doorstep of the weather balloon. Yeah, that's right.
How do you get to the weather balloon? You show up here, and I never ask. Do you have like a jetpack, or?
You know what? You're just always sleeping, so you just never see how I get here, and I'd rather keep it, a mystery.
Is there anything else outside of the weather balloon? I've never asked. I've never gone outside. We went to North Korea that one time, so I know North Korea exists.
It's a really complicated question, so for now I'll just say no.
No?
Nothing.
Oh. Wow.
Besides the internet.
Oh my god.
I just go and hang out, I Am Legend style,
In the void, out in just empty cities, and so just vampires and you just out there.
And a lot of other weird things.
Really?
Yeah.
Like cucumber men? I hear that's a thing.
That's it.
It's on the internet.
And Viking, bear men.
Viking bear men?
Yeah.
So cucumber men and Viking bear men and vampires.
And that's the only three.
I have to say,
nailed the three genuses of...
of mankind now.
Mankind.
If we did a genus of the mankind chart, we'd have a picture of you, we'd have Viking bear men, cucumber men, and then vampires.
If that was a silhouette, a cucumber man would look an awful lot like a pickle man.
Well, the pickle men got killed by the peanut race about 2,000 years ago. You know about that.
I didn't.
People like World War 16, but for me, World War 22 is really where it went off.
I know it's underrated, but the 17,
I mean, that's when crocodiles really came in a big way.
Yeah.
People didn't know. We didn't know what crocodiles could do with those front feet and their wings. We had no idea.
No idea.
Guys, so we're here to talk about something very similar, which is Cinderella. Cinderella, the new Disney film. That's
it's kind of like a revarnishing.
Yeah, revarnishing, like furniture.
Like it gets a little dusty. It's a little old. You put a little
varnish on
it,
there,
and then you rub it off.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to be shiny and new, but
it is.
We all know it's just the same old thing.
It's just the same table.
That thing is just old.
So let's talk about our revarnished Cinderella. Todd, can you please, as we kick off each of these episodes, give us a nice little recap in case anyone has forgotten the film they have just seen?
You got it. Hey kids, have you ever seen or been told the story of Cinderella?
I don't know.
Well, this is that, except we meet her mom, and she's pretty nice. And also, it's not as good as that other time you saw or heard it. And that's pretty much it. Cinderella. You know the deal. Here's the problem with the whole thing. Why am I being told this story? Why redo it? What's the point?
And you know what, guys? That's going to take us right into our punch-up.
Punch-up!
Oh, God, Todd! Get away from me!
Oh, he's gone. Are you okay?
Yeah, I didn't know cucumber men could fly.
I had no clue. They must have inbred with the crocodiles.
Jesus.
Oh, what's the world come to?
Let's talk about more important things.
Yeah.
Like Cinderella.
Like Cinderella at the local Cineplex, which is the only other thing that exists in this world.
That one theater that we can go to.
In North Korea.
So, as we start each of our punch-ups, we always talk about the things we like. Todd, what were some of the things you liked about this film?
I'm going to be honest. I only like two things.
Okay.
And it was Cate Blanchett and the cute little mice.
Aw.
Because I really liked those cute little mice.
Those cute little mice.
And Cate Blanchett, as I said earlier, is like just one of our best and brightest.
She is. She looked great. The hair and like the face.
She was
There's a lot going on in that face.
She's really, really great. And I actually sympathized with her. There's this great moment in the film where she basically describes like why she is the way she is,
right?
And how Cinderella says something like, "But
why are you mean?"
Yeah, and she's just like, "Oh, like, well, not everyone can have just like not everything's peaches and cream and rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes you get married to a fellow and he dies, and then you have to like remarry a person because
and then he dies
because you have no
alternatives,
alternative, and you have no like money and no anything and no security, and then he dies, and then you're stuck with nothing but this like wretched little kid, this brat and whatever, who like thinks that everything is wonderful and like talks to animals, and then a ball happens where you have the potential to marry off one of your daughters to a prince. So that's why I'm, and she explains herself, and I was just like, how do I like the villain more than I like the protagonist? But it's good because it's well done.
For me, I mean, one of the things I liked was how they started to at least expand a little bit on the world.
Yeah.
And I really liked some of the peripheral side characters, and I was like, that guy's like a little nefarious. Maybe he's doing some nefarious things.
Like
he
the Duke kind of guy.
Yeah, the Duke was doing some nefarious stuff.
Character, yeah.
The captain guy was fun. Like, there were some fun peripheral characters. And, Rob Stark was looking very handsome. All the stuff was super pretty, and really, everything gleamed with so much light. It was like, you could have never seen beauty like that.
It's like something like a fairy tale.
Like a fairy tale. You nailed it, Todd.
That scene actually, there's two changes that they made, two slight changes that I actually thought were really nice changes. I actually enjoyed the moment where they meet, because that's not in the original.
Oh, that's right, that isn't.
The moment where the prince and Cinderella's like riding her horse, she's angry, she's going away, and she runs into the prince. That's not in the original. The original, she wants to go to the ball, and she's not allowed, and then she meets he doesn't want to dance with anybody, and then he sees her, and then they fall in love instantly. They didn't know each other before that moment. And then the slipper, and then he's like, where is she, and all that kind of stuff. This moment, what I really like about it is it gives reason to the moment where he says, let all maidens
come to the ball
who are eligible.
Secret agenda to meet her again.
Yeah, and that's really nice.
That was really nice.
Because he ran into this like nice girl who is like beautiful, and he knows she's not a princess. He definitely knows she's not a princess. But then again, he doesn't look like a prince, and he's playing a non-prince at that time.
Well, I wouldn't say he doesn't look like a prince. He just doesn't, because he is riding around in like probably the most beautiful of. If in that time period, the man is decked in like bright emeralds and like golden pants and on like a beautiful horse.
But he doesn't present himself as a prince, and refuses his guy calling him a prince.
I will say, that was probably one of my favorite moments of the film, when he turns and goes, it's Kit, my name's Kit. I like, that was like a very human, fun moment that I did really enjoy.
That's what I mean. They humanized the prince a little bit instead of, because before he was just sort of like
he was a prince. He was he was a Ken doll that walked out and danced and then got married somebody.
That's exactly as a Ken doll that ran after a shoe. I
don't know if this is the moment I liked, but it did make me laugh, was at the end of the film when like the princess just happens to be at the house, where he just like throws the garb off. He was like, I was here the whole time, and then like goes to put the shoe on.
Is that in the original?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think
like either he's going around, the prince is just going around with the shoe, or like she comes to I don't remember how that ends, but I just do remember that being pretty funny, where he was just like, actually, I'm here the whole time.
Cloak and dagger.
Just been great. Like one of the guys like look over, it's like, how did I not know that I was riding? Like, we've been talking for like the last 30 minutes. This is not a short horse ride out here.
The prince like punched out one of his own men and like took his
clothes. He snapped his neck. There's a dead guard somewhere outside.
A dead naked guard somewhere.
It's a really dark version of this film.
And he's like, I have to find her at all costs. Gerald, come over here.
That's an entirely different punch up. Just a really so goes halfway through the film, he becomes like super obsessive. I will burn down every village unless you send me Cinderella.
It's like the 50 Shades.
You know what? That's why they call her Cinderella, because he burned down villages until he found her. This is like that twisted version.
Let's do a twisted. Let's save this.
We'll save the twisted Cinderella version.
Yeah, the twisted Cinderella punch up.
Those were some of the things we liked.
There was one more thing that I like that I think ties into some of the other stuff that we want to talk about. I believe.
Okay.
I really liked. The only difference with this than the other version, besides like little things and little changes that they made, is that we get to meet the mother.
Right.
I especially liked Peter Parker with great power gets great responsibility. Mm-hmm. This kind of person gets this person gets that. Cinderella gets have courage and be kind from her mother who then dies. So Cinderella lives her entire life adhering to this rule, this golden rule, this philosophy of life. And I actually, really, really like that moment. Mm-hmm. It's just that I didn't think that the movie did a great job of having that moment and those words come up again and again and be really, really important to her,
Right.
and guide her journey and her development through the story.
They brought it up like a few other times, but it was always this kind of like, that's a nice line. Like, I remember the
Exactly.
prince like goes in and goes like, maybe if you had courage and if you were kind, huh? And it's like, that's a nice thing to say, I guess.
You say things like that too?
You should be king.
That's a great little thing to do, to give a character a philosophy in the beginning of the film to like live by and be challenged by.
Oh, yeah.
And have that kind of shape their character, especially in trying times, which this movie certainly has as an existence of a concept in the film, but it wasn't very felt because of some of the things that I believe we're about to get into most likely right now.
Yeah. So let's go into a little bit of the things that we didn't like about this film. Todd, what's your first?
Magic.
Magic.
Disney's about magic, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Right. So the original Cinderella had plenty of it. And this one does too. This has magic within it. But I think what they were trying to do with this one was ground it in a little bit more of a reality because it's not animated. They went for more of a like, these are people in a society and there are rules and all this kind of stuff. And people can't really talk to animals. Cinderella's just crazy.
She's just a crazy lady.
That's a great setup for the moment when you get the fairy godmother comes along and there's a switch. All these animals that she's been talking to and seemingly they understand her and they have a little bit of a rapport with each other suddenly become these animals that can think and speak and talk and all those kinds of things. Well, that didn't happen.
No.
And I kept thinking that that's, of course, what's going to happen, because that's magic.
Yeah.
But in this, it's almost like that wasn't there, and it was kind of just like, oh, okay, so they just kind of like communicate a little bit. And then when the magic does happen, the fairy godmother moment and all that kind of stuff, it felt a little out of place.
It was random.
Because of the way that the movie was setting the tone of what is real and what is not.
That's true.
This moment where all of a sudden there's a fairy godmother and she's like making a pumpkin do this and all this kind of stuff. Cinderella sort of takes it in stride like, oh, my mom told me that there are fairy godmothers and therefore I believe all of what's happening.
And it's also weird to introduce it like that, especially when we spent most of the film of having real tragedy. And then when she's actually faced with, I don't think real tragedy when you compare it to her mom dying of a disease or her father getting killed on the road. The moment the fairy godmother shows up is when she needs to go to a ball. Like, that's when, like, it's almost like, you're real? It's like, yes, of course. It's like, where were you when my mother was dying? Where were you when my father, like, I want to go to the ball, but if I knew I had, like, a one chip to cash in,
right.
I probably would have cashed it in when my mom was dying.
Do I get more wishes? Can one of them go back in time to when my parents were still alive?
Dearie, we can turn pumpkins into I don't care. My mom died here.
But there you go. That's a very astute point, that if there is magic in this world, we need to know when it can be used and how it can be used.
Right, like there has to be reasons why, like, you set up rules for magic and why sometimes it can't work. Genie and Aladdin, there are 3 things I can't do as a genie. I can't bring people back from the dead, I can't make somebody love you, and I can't kill somebody.
And we learn, that it's because you rub the lamp. If you find the lamp, you are the owner of the genie.
Right.
That's the rule with that. So who is the fairy godmother? How does she come about? Maybe it's...
Does she only come about when something else happens or whatever?
Maybe it's like at your moment of greatest weakness. Maybe it's when your soul is broken and you stop believing in magic is right when
she
you're...
shows up, yeah.
So here we go. We got this broken Cinderella and she's lost her family. She's been dehumanized by these wicked people and she's become just almost like a piece of furniture in the house. And then she's told that she has this opportunity to go to the ball because everyone is equal today. All people can go to the ball, except they tear her rags and she's forced to go back upstairs and she's crying. And this is when the fairy godmother shows up. That's not necessarily the way, like, yes, by fact, that is how the facts line up in the film. That's not what it feels like. It doesn't feel like the worst, darkest moment of her, where she's just like crying and
Yeah, it's not to me there's not enough drama around it. It's just like, I'm sad. Like, how sad is this in comparison to every other sad thing that's happened?
That's right.
It's just it there doesn't have that extra punch. It's not like the weight is finally broken, even though they try to make it seem like that. It just doesn't come across that way. And like you said, when you don't lay in the foundation from the start for magic, to just suddenly be like, Helena Bonham Carter's here to turn a thing into a pumpkin, and now lizards are people. You're like, whoa, what?
And where does she come from? Who is she?
Who is she?
What is that?
There was also she never came back. It was just like, I'm here, homeless person, make you a pumpkin carriage, and then like disappear forever. And it was just
exactly. This is my problem.
Never
with
come back
the
to it.
rules of magic and how they exist in this world. You know what? We'll talk about this later. Remind me of this later.
We're going to come back to this.
There's two choices. There's two choices you can do with this.
Honestly, when you just said that, I think we both had the exact same. So let's talk about one of the other things that we had some issues with, and we've talked about a little bit, is the changes that they've made to this film.
That's right. The slight alterations.
Yeah, just a couple things here or there. They weren't as strong, honestly.
With the exception of seeing the mother in the beginning and then having Cinderella and the prince meet up before they actually meet up at the ball. Mm-hmm. All of the slight changes that they made, and I think I remember a few of them, but all the slight changes that they made, like, I felt like didn't serve the movie. And in fact, I think were choices that actually lessened the importance of the story. Most importantly, they do this thing with the slipper. In the original film, the prince shows up to the last house and he tries it on the two wicked stepsisters. There's music. She's singing Cinderella from the attic. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's the song that was being sung that was being played at the ball. Lady Tremaine goes and shuts the doors and shuts the windows because she realizes in this moment that, oh, Cinderella was at the ball. How would she have known that song if she wasn't? Mm-hmm. And she shuts the windows and shuts the doors and all that kind of stuff and prevents but then the mice help the window open, and then, right as he's about to go away, the prince hears it and, is like, oh, there must be another maiden in the house and etc., right? And then just at that moment, she breaks the slipper.
Right.
This is still in the 1950 Cinderella. Lady Tremaine breaks the slipper so that she can't try it on. But then Cinderella produces the other slipper, and fairy tale ending, try it on,
right.
Everything's good. Not the grim fairy tale ending with like the stepsisters cutting off their toes and heels in order to fit in it and their eyes getting pecked out by birds, which I prefer. But a nice little fairy tale ending. Okay, changes. In this movie, Cate Blanchett finds out well before the prince is even there that she was at the ball and locks her upstairs. What this does is takes the moment of tension away from that moment that is a finale kind of moment where she realizes like, oh, the prince is here, we can't have her here. Normally she wasn't at the ball, so who cares? Exactly. But now she knows, so it's a slight change, but it makes the story, that makes that moment worse. That weakens that moment.
The drama is just weaker in that scene because it doesn't have that. It doesn't have everything coming to fruition at one time.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it. Yeah. So the little changes here or there, just don't serve the film in a positive light. So some of the other things that we had issues with were just the world in general. For example, what was this world? Like, what was the world sitting in? Was it a world of magic? No, because they only bring it up at one point in the film, even though it would have been nice to have more magic in the film, because I guess only the mom and Cinderella are the only ones that know about magic in this film. Nobody else does. And then they have a little bit of this, like, political intrigue with a little bit of that feel of Pride and Prejudice, right?
Right.
But it's only a little bit. It's only like, well, you have to marry because, remember, marrying is strengthening the kingdom, and we have many enemies out there that you want to abide and bring your armies together and make stronger, but we never know the enemies, we don't see the enemies, we don't see the army, we don't really get any of that either. It's like this weird mishmash in between. It just like feels like a standalone kingdom that has no real substance below the pretty dresses and I guess peasants. We don't know. They all seem to be doing fine.
If you're trying to take that movie and fill it out more and give it more dramatic presence, whether or not you want to do it with the more magical way, magical realism and things are real and magic is real, or you want to go the more practical way, you got to fill this world out with people, a universe, problems, like what happens if your parents die? What are the stakes? The key factor here that I was expecting to make the change is Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
He knows these things. He knows Shakespeare. He knows Pride and Prejudice. He knows like English literature and other literature.
There's so much family emotional weight there.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
In this. And so I was expecting that the movie would be a dramatic take on Cinderella, like grounding her in the reality of her times. Look at Pride and Prejudice. Look at one of my favorite films, A Little Princess. I thought of that film a lot during this movie because it is a bit of a Cinderella story. And there is a moment when Miss Minchin, the evil overlord of the boarding school, she finds out that her father is dead, except he's just presumed missing in action, and she just says that her father's dead and takes away all of her stuff and makes her go live in the attic. And there's this moment where, because of it's earlier in the film, there's a reference to it, to a story that she likes to tell. There's this moment where after she takes Miss Minchin takes this locket away from her, she draws this circle in chalk around her and cries. And it is the saddest point of this movie, where this little girl has just lost everything, and it's so sad. And in Cinderella, pop, that's when the fairy godmother shows up. That's the moment that I was missing, where it was like, just because your mom who died says, be courteous, be brave?
Be courageous and kind.
Be courageous and kind. Just because your mother who died says be courageous and kind doesn't mean that everything is sunshine and rainbows for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you deal with, troublesome moments with just like, I guess that's how it is. I guess it's how it is, and like I should just be courteous and kind, or courageous and kind. What about challenging the notion of the things that we're told by our parents that once they're around anymore are hard things to live by? What about that?
Todd, you're getting right into my biggest problem with this film: the lesson.
The lesson. What
was the lesson of Cinderella in this film? Because what the overarching lesson seemed to be, what you're saying here, was have courage and be kind.
Let everything happen to you.
Yeah, and as it was presented in the film, just turn the other cheek, but also like just get walked all over. And don't worry, because a Deus Ex Machina godmother will show up and just make your ball gown and you can go be the princess and queen of the kingdom. That's how life works. I thought the lesson should have been dealing with loss and forgiveness.
Oh, very nice.
Because to me, where I thought this movie was going to go in a different direction, and I was really excited about it, was at the very beginning of the film. It's after the mother had died, and the stepmom had come in, had just married. There was a scene like the stepmom was like having a game of cards and playing poker with a bunch of gentlemen and people that they invited over for a party, and they were having a good time.
And they're sort of taking over the house.
They're kind of taking over the house. Right. The father was in another room.
That's right.
She comes over, Cinderella's like, you're leaving again, like, I don't want you to go. And he's like, don't worry, like, I'll be coming back, and like your mother's, I still like, do you love my mom? And like, of course I still love your mother. And we see just off to the side that the stepmother overhears this, and you see a little bit of her heart, like you can see it in her face, get like a little bit torn up and a little bit hurt. And there's so many times in this moment, you mentioned earlier with this stepmother character, that like she's a broken character. In this original film, she's a villain, and sure, she's a villain in this film, but I would have liked to have seen them go the route of like teaching forgiveness, that maybe through Cinderella's kindness and courage and perseverance, she can turn this cold heart of her stepmother. Maybe the stepmother can also teach her about how to deal with loss. Like this house isn't everything. Like your father and your mother loved you very much, but there's more outside of this. Like maybe there's a point where they together either work together or they help heal one another, and then that helps push forward to the ending of the film.
Cinderella proves that forgiveness is the way, being courageous and kind and having forgiveness is the way that you win. Because if you're a person like her and you hold grudges and you vie for political power and you're cutthroat and all this kind of stuff, you lose. It doesn't work for you. So she learns. There's a moment maybe where they have a conversation. And she says, "I've always felt this way." And there's
attic
this
scene. It's that attic scene, but how that attic scene plays
it's where
out
the protagonist
in the film,
and the antagonist say, "We're not so different, you and I." It's that moment.
And how that scene plays out in the film is her like very much so. Kate Blanchett tells her, my husband died, then I remarried, and then he died. She says this whole thing, and literally like 10 seconds later, they go through this exchange, and then Cinderella says the line, "Why are you so mean?" And like I did the biggest eye roll in the theater, and I wanted to be like, she just said why she's so mean. She just explained.
She kind of laid it out, and she laid it out in like this is the world and how it works.
Right.
And it's her philosophy of how the world works, because she's been shit on. But you know what? So is Cinderella.
Yeah.
And so they are actually very, very similar. It's just that one...
kin. See, that's important. That's
Right.
And that's the thing.
Vulnerability.
In the movie, you could even say in the movie, like, well, she forgives her at the end. Yeah, she forgives Cate Blanchett's character when she's just become queen and she's walking out the door. It's super easy to
When
turn
she's
around and
won,
go,
yeah.
like, when I've won, just go, I forgive you. Almost even, like, sarcastic and mean. Like,
It did sound
by the way,
sarcastic.
I forgive you. I'm better than you.
I'm better than you.
No, she needs to have that moment of forgiveness when she, too, is at her lowest. When she feels like she's lost everything. And maybe, like, the Duke. You know, in this movie, we have at the end, like, Cate Blanchett's character and the Duke kind of connive to keep Cinderella away from the prince.
Right.
You could have that the Duke double crosses both of them. Keeps Cinderella away and then double crosses Cate Blanchett. And now Kate and the sisters and Cinderella have all lost something. And in this scene where they're gonna, like, tear each other apart, like, you did this to us, well, you locked me in here, and we could have... They have finally a breakdown where they have a moment where they meet in the middle, and they both have forgiveness for one another, and they finally see on the same page. And then maybe going into the end, they have a similar direction. Maybe now with Cinderella becoming a princess, or whatever stakes we've set up, they are now on the same track to get her to the prince and maybe stop this mean Duke or whoever it is.
And I'm not the biggest fan of changing the antagonist of the entire film into a protagonist, like, near the end. I like the concept that can happen sometimes, but, like, that's the main antagonist. But I know I like where you're going.
Right.
I like the concept of where you're going.
Because-
and what you've done, by the way, is take the existing story
Yeah.
and add things to it that makes it a little bit different and updates it while still adhering to the same mythology.
Because that's the thing. That's the big question. Why did you make this movie?
That's
right?
I texted you the exact same
Yeah.
question after I saw the film. I'm like, well, I just don't understand why
they did this.
I don't really get the reasoning for why this exists.
And that's the thing. And look, I love antagonists in the film. I love antagonists in a film. I'm hugely known for talking about villains. But the thing is, if you're going to remake this movie, then do something different. Then see a different side of the story. And sure, like, it doesn't have to be till the very end, and you can still have certain points that still feel organic to the original Cinderella story, but honestly, with Cate Blanchett as that character and setting up all this loss, I really wanted this cathartic scene where both of them could kind of meet in the middle and have a moment like that.
You're right that the character that they set up, whereas in the other, it's just a blanket bad evil person.
I'm just evil the whole way through.
In this one, they set up a vulnerable character, which was one of my reasons why it was one of my pros.
Yeah.
Because I liked her, and even sometimes more so than the protagonist, because I understood her more than the protagonist, than Cinderella herself. But, the character that's written is set up for a redemption of some kind. You're totally right about that. And I see where you're going now, that, like, maybe towards the end, they all get screwed. The Archduke becomes the big nemesis.
And here's the thing, you have him throughout the film as being like this side-by-side with Cate Blanchett's character as being nefarious with her, but he's the one who, takes that, like, well, I'm in power and you're not. You're, once again, she's set up for something she thinks is going to be successful, and Cate Blanchett's character is... she thinks conniving or doing things a certain way, and she loses.
And then you're right. Cate Blanchett, Lady Tremaine, teams up then, using all of her connivingness,
her connections
for good this time.
And then we have the sisters
and tries
get
to
in on it as
screw
well.
the Archduke back, and the sisters get in on it, and they're not so good at it, but they're, trying.
Right, and I would have loved to seen that other side of the coin with the sisters too. Like, the sisters are just cartoon characters, but this isn't a cartoon movie.
You're right.
If you do that too, like, I think we're straight up into the punch of it this
We're
point.
already there.
But,
we're
like,
far into it.
So at this point with the sisters, what would have been nice is there's a couple scenes in the film where, like, one of the sisters is trying to sing and she can't really sing, and, like, there's some other scenes where, like, the other one can't, like, play piano, and, like, Cinderella, like, kind of laughs a little bit. It would have been nice to have a scene, like, later on again when we're flipping the other side of that coin, where it's like, I'm not as good as a singer as you. Like, my mom loved, like, she used to sing, and she always wishes I could sing, and, like, my father used to love my mom for singing, which
the
is
house
why
used to be
I
full
try to
of
sing.
sound,
Used to be full
and
of singing,
music, yeah.
and she doesn't sing anymore, and I try to sing, but I'm not nearly as good as her, or I'm not nearly as good as you. And now we have, like, oh, we've humanized the sisters. We know why they're being so ridiculous all the time, because they're trying to fill this house that used to have warmth with some kind of emotion. They don't know. They're too young. So they're like, maybe if we're loud, maybe if we act out.
And all they know is the lessons that their awful, conniving mother teaches
Right.
them. So all they know is manipulation and...
Which
and,
now we're getting into, oh my God, all this meat in this story, in this house that Kenneth... You know, this director is known for being able to pull and really showcase and have these full dramatic scenes that are just, they're off somewhere else. We don't know where they are. And
it's interesting now because with that story, with that ending, rather, or that kind of narrative thrust, you've got 4 women in a household who all are in a similar position, but have all had like gotten there completely different ways.
Yeah.
And have different backgrounds and perspectives and all this kind of stuff. But they all are in the same boat and they start trying to help each other.
Yeah.
You know, depending on which framework you want to put this in, whether we talked about the 2 worlds,
right?
Whether it's a world where, you know, magic exists and it's this alternate universe of a kingdom where like magic is outlawed or it exists, but only like certain people can access it or whatever, right?
Which, by the way, the great way you introduce that at the end is when Cate Blanchett and her have this final blowout fight, and Cate Blanchett is at her lowest, you have like one of the mice go up and say something, but it's not like a squeak anymore. It's actually she can hear the mouse for the first time. And now finally Lady
Tremaine can like speak, and she realizes like, oh my God. And it's you're doing it, Peter.
Yeah, you're doing
kind
it, Peter,
of moment.
you believe. Yeah.
So there's that world, or there's the world that's serious and Shakespearean and, you know, like Austinian, is this a word?
Sure.
You know,
it is now.
I'll
enter it into the computer.
It's like a Victorian kind of world, and it's all about property and prestige and
if you want to do magic in that way, I feel like if you go that Pride and Prejudice route, you have the magic be like, was it magic? Like, well, there's this carriage here. It's like, who are you? Like, she could have been a stranger.
Yeah.
Like, she could have been a rich stranger. Instead of, like, turning a pumpkin into a carriage, which, by the way, is completely destroying that whole bibbidi-bobbidi-boo lovable thing that we love about the original. But if you want to go that way,
it's a different
way to go. Just have a woman come in
yeah.
and say, like, hey, you know, I have this carriage. I don't need it for the night. If you want to take it, by the way, I have these beautiful dresses. You look about my size. You make her mysterious. You don't ever reveal too much more about her. If you want to do that way, you can have the magic playing in more of subtle tones. Like, this is probably magic, but you're not going to see, like, the pumpkin explode into a carriage or something like that.
Or, I mean, unless the pumpkin is there's just a prize-winning pumpkin next door with this very nice person who is, you know, watching Cinderella this whole time, that they just stick wheels on it and then, like, send it along because they're like, oh, I don't have a carriage, and they look at the pumpkin,
which would
and it's
be
like
hilarious.
The biggest pumpkin ever.
You
know?
Just imagine that shot, which would get some laughs. You just have like the one shot of the 2 guards just standing there waiting outside the palace, like just looking at
with
each
a
other,
giant pumpkin,
like lightly talking to each other, like, yeah, beautiful day today, yeah, and then just like and just slowly this pumpkin being pulled by like pigs and geese roll up, and this like girl runs out of it.
See, and then inside there's just like seeds hanging down and stringy, you know, pumpkin stuff, and somehow she like, you know, like is able to clean herself off before she goes inside. This is a way to do it. This is a different way to do it. That is the exact same thing.
You wink at it, but you don't. Yeah,
and that's. I mean, to me, that would have been a much more interesting film to have watched. I like either of them. Either the super magical, awesome one, but magic is real and it's a thing, and if you only believe, and what a Disney thing that is.
Exactly.
Or the, you know, the more very serious kind of thing that magic is just what people do for one another, kindnesses that people show
to the
each
neighbor.
other.
The magic there is why they went out of their way to make this crazy pumpkin carriage.
It's like some old lady that nobody likes, and she's just nice to her anyway.
She crafts crazy vegetables in her backyard. She's known for that in the village. Yeah, that's a great idea to have,
and
to
trains animals, you know,
it.
And people think she's crazy and whatnot. You know?
I love that.
Yeah, like this is there's different ways to skin the cat.
Yeah, and it's just two different films, but 2 different films that have more substance. And again, answer that question: why did you make this film?
Right.
Oh, we made it to have more of this conversation,
right?
Or have more of this conversation.
And I really like this development of the antagonist into a friend to fight a bigger antagonist and help the person who has been there all along, turning the other cheek, and, you know, is like a Christ figure, to get to where she's trying to get to, the only thing that she ever wants, which is this man. He happens to be a prince, but she doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
She loves the man, and she wants to get him, and so they storm the ball or the castle, and they get there just in time, you know, and whatever. And that's a great ending, and the Archduke is dispatching the guard and lying to the prince and the king, and dispatches the guard in order to foil their plots and everything. This is an exciting, different finale than we've seen.
Now we have just a different film, but still that Cinderella feel. And
suddenly, the 2015 Disney's Cinderella is something to talk about, something that's different and fun, and interesting and still adheres to the mythology.
Yeah.
But
if you want to see that old mythology, there's a great 1950s film you can sit down and watch. It's got the mice, it's got the whole story. But
bippity boppity boo.
Yeah, but if you want to see this new take, a new twist here and there, this is a great version as well.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that was our punch up for Cinderella, and that'll take us into our smash up.
Smash, 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 smash,
Smash, smash, smash
Jay, magic is real. Look at this.
Yeah, wow.
We just started, after this lovely choral
Symphony
that, we just laid down for you. All of the animals in the existing post-apocalyptic kingdom that is this planet that we're on.
Cucumber men, cucumber crocodile hybrids, and Dennis Rodman too.
Yeah, I mean, they all came and they're all singing, and
it's terrifying.
It's actually a nightmare.
Well, I don't want to describe it to anyone because we don't want to give anyone nightmares.
Is our balloon safe with all these crocodiles?
Yeah, there's a lot of weight with all these people around the outside, but it is reinforced magical steel. Anyways, guys, let's get into the smash up. So, as we do for each game, Todd and I will bring a globally accepted good film and a globally accepted bad film, and we will smash them together for you guys to make one cohesive, well, hopefully cohesive, new film for you.
Egg you eggs.
Now,
I want to smash them.
Todd, for this episode, has the good film, and I have the bad film. We don't know what the other one is. This will be the first time I'm going to hear Todd's good film, and he'll hear my bad film, and I cannot wait to say it. I'm interested to see if you've actually seen this film.
Oh no!
I feel like only a few have. Maybe.
I like it when one of us has not seen the film because it makes it very interesting to explain.
Here we go.
Okay.
On the count of three. One, two, three. Aragon.
The
Thing in Aragon.
What is Aragon?
Okay, Aragon.
Wait, did that come out recently?
That came out
like a few years ago?
4 years ago.
Is it an animated film?
No, it's a live action film.
Okay.
So Aragon is a film. It's like a fantasy film.
Yeah,
so
right.
This was after like Lord of the Rings came out, and everybody was like, "We need every fantasy book. Harry Potter's doing well. What do we got?" And there's this book series called Aragon.
Isn't Aragorn the name of the character in
Lord of the Rings? But it's Aragon. It's
No, that's
Eragon.
That's the same thing. It's
yeah,
the
and it's played by Viggo Mortensen.
Wow.
Really
Wait, no, it's
weird.
not.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. It's but it's about a boy who grows up to be a dragon rider. It's almost like How to Train Your Dragon, but it's in this world, like dragons have riders, and like if you are a rider of dragons, you have like dragon magic, and like you can do all this cool stuff, right? It's like kind of like being born a Jedi or whatever it is. But this film had like Jeremy Irons. It had like a lot of cool people in it, but it was like poorly under budgeted.
Is there like a castle or something?
Yeah, there's
where do they live?
A castle.
What is the world?
He's like a farm. It's like very Star Wars. Very like he's a farm boy, and he happens to find an egg, and like by touching the egg, it like imprints him, and he's like, I'm a dragon rider, and like he raises the dragon, and then he has to fight like, of course, the villain has like a super evil dragon. He like rides like this massive dragon, and in a short pitch, it's like this should like work, right? But it doesn't. It was a pretty bad film.
Okay. And The Thing being the famous, amazing John Carpenter, my favorite John Carpenter film, about a research facility in what?
Antarctica?
Antarctica, the Arctic, somewhere in Antarctica, that is plagued by a mysterious thing that is a shape-shifting virus of sorts.
Murder alien.
That is like some type of symbiote thing that can, take the shape of anything once it copies it. Some of the greatest special effects of any film.
Because it was actual effects. It was puppetry.
Oh, yeah.
It was like back in the day when they were like at their peak.
Oh, yeah. And it's just an unbelievable, scary... So...
How do we bring an Arctic horror symbiote murder death film into a fantasy dragon rider film?
I'm picturing, we open on a desolate farm in Antarctica.
Of course. That's where farming is a perfect area.
Yes, of course. They're farming...
Dad, where are we going to go farm? We're going to farm in Antarctica. That's where all the crops are.
It's not working out.
A lot of these farmers got swindled at the same time. They're like, look at this beautiful land. It took them there on like the only day in the year.
It was a real estate swindle.
It's like, I can't believe we're getting this land for such a deal. And then there was a land rush for Antarctica.
There was a Music Man guy came through.
Basically, Harold Hill came through town. I was like, I've got some land for you. You'd never believe it. And then they go down, and all these farmers are like, look, my boy has found something strange. This might revitalize our crops.
They think it's going to save them, this egg, and he's like, like, oh, I'm gonna become like, when this thing hatches, we're gonna use it to fight the bad guys and whatnot. But the egg hatches and this alien pops out and basically starts like, takes the shape of the boy and becomes the kid, and then the whole town is
I
like,
love the opening of a fantasy film that just instantly goes the opposite way.
it becomes a horror movie. And then,
Dad, this is gonna solve all our problems.
and they're like, well, where is it? It hatched, like, where is it? And he's like, where is it? And he's like copying them.
Change. You see like his eyes shifts a little bit.
Yeah, right. Turn into like, and this thing begins to shapeshift and no one knows where it is, and everybody, but it starts to gradually shapeshift over time. It becomes different farm animals,
As it goes
smaller
across the Arctic wasteland.
It starts as a chicken and it goes into a goat, and then they have rhinoceros there, so there's a rhinoceros.
Of course, rhinoceroses are all over the Antarctic.
And then a horse, and then a giraffe, and then
I love
suddenly
like the natural progression is rhino, then horse,
they're
then
taller.
giraffe.
They're taller. And
Sure.
then suddenly, the last incarnation. And by the way, everyone can be one of these things. No one knows exactly like who it is and where it is and all this kind of stuff. But its final incarnation, a giant dragon.
Yes. So it finally was true. He did become a dragon, or he
He became a dragon warrior, except he like kind of decimated his entire population
to do it.
But you know what? They were kind of like not doing so well anyway.
Yeah, they weren't very smart farmers.
And
They
then-
also noticed a rhino, like just out in the middle of the Arctic, and they were
get
like,
there.
"Well, it couldn't be the rhino. I mean, these are all over the place, right? It's obviously we shouldn't shoot that thing."
Let's look for anything out of the ordinary. Rhinoceros, giraffe,
chicken in the tundra,
dragon! And the boy inside the dragon realizes, I killed them all. There was time now. There was time.
And then he curls up into a little ball, and then the last shot is just the guy who's the Harold Hill character going, and then just cut to black.
It's not a bad. It got dark, but it's actually kind of cool.
It's
towards
actually
the end
kind of
there.
cool. Yeah, it did.
So what would be called? Aragorn : the Thing.
Aragorn's thing?
The Thing who is Aragorn.
What's eating Aragorn's grapes?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Guys, so this concludes episode 16 of Blockbuster Punch-Up and our review and punch-up of Cinderella.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Just barely made it.
We'll be posting a new episode every other week. Please leave us a review or any comments on iTunes. It helps people find the show. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. That's arc with a C. Of course, you can email us any questions at blockbusterpunchup@gmail.com, or your theories for the sequel to Dragon,
Arctic farmer, alien, dragon
alien
things.
thing. Yes, absolutely. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at partialarc, and you can follow Todd on Twitter and Instagram at TG11. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode of Blockbuster Punch-Up!
Let's go home.